Welcome to Flipped Classroom. The unit is directed numbers and we are looking at multiplying and dividing integers. Our learning intention today is we are learning how to multiply and divide integers, and our success criteria is I'm successful when I can multiply two integers and divide two integers. So I've got a little bit of a challenge. Can we complete this table? Now we've got the numbers in the triangles that are decreasing by 1 each time. We've got the little diamonds that are the same, and we're looking at what triangle times the diamond is, and we've already filled in the first one. And the rest aren't too hard. We can keep counting down. We know our 3 times table, and we can easily get down to 0 times 3 is 0. But we start noticing a pattern. Every time we decrease the triangle by 1, we decrease our answer by 3. So we can keep doing this, and if we need to, use a number line, and we can go down to -9. So we can see that -3 times 3 is -9. So let's try this one. We've got that 3 times -3, and we know that multiplication is commutative, which means that -3 times 3 is the same as 3 times -3. So we've already got that answer in. And we can fill in the rest of the answers going through, because we know that every time that we decrease one of the triangles, we need to change the final answer by 3. And if you have a look, we start at -9, we go up to -6, and then up to -3, and we're back to 0 again. And we keep doing that all the way up until we work out that -3 times -3 is 9. Now, we can use this to work out the rules for multiplying and therefore dividing integers. So the first thing that we need to do when multiplying and dividing integers is we need to work out what the sign of the product or the quotient is going to be. Now, the product or the quotient is the answer of multiplication and division. So product is the answer to multiplying two numbers, and quotient is the answer to dividing two numbers. If the sign of the two integers that we are doing in the product or quotient are positive, therefore the answer is going to be a positive. If they're both negative, it's also going to be positive. So if the two signs are the same, the answer will be positive. And we have this table here to remind us. So a positive times a positive is a positive, and a positive divided by a positive is also a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative divided by a negative is still a positive. If the signs are the same for our operation, so if it's a positive times a positive, or a negative times a negative, or a positive divided by a positive, or a negative divided by a negative, our answer will always be positive. That means that if the two signs are opposite, then the answer is going to be a negative. And we can go back to our table from before and look at those, and we can see that happening. So it is useful to remember this and have it written down in your book so you can always go back and look at it. Once we've worked out what the sign is, we can work out what the value is going to be by completing that product or quotient on the numbers without the sign. So we just look at the absolute value. So let's try some examples. We have our 4 questions up the top there, and on the left hand side I'm going to do my thinking, and on my right hand side I'm going to show my teacher what I know by writing it all down. Let's start with the first question. 3 times -5, and you'll notice the negative is in brackets, so it's nice and clear. Now the 3 is a positive, so we don't have to write the sign there. We could if we want to, but we don't need to write that sign. So my first part is I need to work out the sign of the answer. Now I can see a positive times a negative, so I know the answer is going to be negative something. And now I just need to work out the product. So I went 3 times 5 is 15. So 3 times -5 is -15. And so in my book, I just write down 3 times -5 equals -15. Let's have a look at question B. So question B has -4 times -7. Again, I'm going to work out the sign for the answer. I can see it's a negative times a negative, so the answer is going to be a positive. Now, I don't need to write that plus in there. I can just leave it without the sign in front. And then next, I need to calculate the product. So I go 7 times 4, which is 28. So I can just write the number 28. I don't need to write the sign in front, so I can just leave it like that. And there's my answer. Next is question C, and we're going to do some division now. So again, I'm going to work out the sign for the answer, and I can see a negative divided by a positive, and that negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative. Now, in my books, I write down that the answer is going to be a negative, so I'll put that negative sign in. Next, I'm going to work out that 63 divided by 9, and I know the answer is 7. So the final answer for this question is negative 7. So I'm going to write down negative 63 divided by 9 equals negative 7. And for question D, I've got negative 48 divided by negative 12. You notice we haven't put the bracket in this second one, and you can see it's still fairly clear, but if you're quickly writing this, that could just be a bit of a dash on your book, and that's why the brackets might be a little bit clearer. So I'm going to write down my negative 48 divided by negative 12, and I'm going to work out the sign, and because it's two negatives, I know the answer is going to be a positive, so I don't need to write that sign in. Now I need to work out that quotient again, and I can see that 48 divided by 12 is 4, so negative 48 divided by negative 12 is 4, and I'll write that into my book for my teacher. For our reflection for this lesson, what is a quick way to remember what the answer sign will be? I want you to think of a way that you could draw this in your book that will remind you how to get to those signs. And for a bit of extension, you could expand this and have a look at what happens if we have a product with more than one operation. So what would happen if we had 3 or 4 integers multiplying together? How could we look at it and work out whether the answer is going to be a positive or a negative at the end of that? As always, like the video and subscribe for more videos on maths.